This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
It's the Blood Red podcast, courtesy of the Liverpool Echo. I'm Guy Clarke. Welcome along. A derby like no other. Liverpool red hot. The Toffees stuck in a battle to survive. We'll preview the action per over Thiago Alcantara, as well as bring you our match predictions and team selector ahead of the Merseyside Derby. To do all of that, we have our Liverpool correspondent, both home and away, Paul Gorst, the chief, Ian Doyle, and the face that runs the place, Joe Rimmer. Gents, I trust you're all well. And Gorsty, I'll throw over to you first. Liverpool 4, Manchester United 0. Discuss.
Do you know what? On Tuesday morning, I was thinking the general optimism amongst Liverpool fans seems to be so high and so obvious that Liverpool are going to tear shreds off United later that night, that it was almost becoming worrying that it was, the obvious story to be written was going to be a banana skin and Liverpool were going to come a cropper. And I think that for Liverpool supporters, particularly of a certain age, it's probably a unique feeling, isn't it, going into a game against United where you're that convinced that Liverpool are going to absolutely hammer them, that you're worried that it's all a bit too obvious. Even in Liverpool's dark days of, say, early 90s, mid-90s, they were never anywhere near as feeble and complicit as United were on Tuesday night at Anfield. And, of course, they're playing a team who you could rightly claim are the best in the world at the moment, alongside Manchester City. But United, absolutely no character, no fight, spineless, really. And everything that Gary Neville was saying on commentary was spot on. From Liverpool's perspective, as soon as they went down the right inside 5 minutes and Salah laid it on a plate for Diaz, you never thought that Liverpool weren't going to do anything other than record a convincing win. And I think 2-0 at half-time flattered United massively, because that was probably, with the first half at Old Trafford, the best Liverpool have played all season. Some of the things they were doing were outrageous. Thiago, I'm sure we'll come to him at some point. Mane's pass for Salah's goal. Diaz, just everyone was absolutely flying, and it was a special night. It was probably the best atmosphere at Anfield this season, and you're always probably going to get that with a night game, aren't you? Particularly against United. So I think Villarreal will be another similar type of atmosphere, and that'll obviously only help. So it's a terrible, awful, as I say, spineless collection of players that United have got, and they've got some work to do before they get it anywhere near back to Liverpool and City's level. So all Liverpool can do is make sure they take advantage, and he certainly did that on Tuesday night.
Doyley, was it United were terrible, or as your player ratings suggest, Liverpool were absolutely sublime? Even a 10 got handed out.
They did, yeah. The Thiago. I got asked afterwards how many 10s had you given out, and couldn't remember all of them, but there was 2 for Salah this season alone. There was 1 for Jota last year at Atalanta. Trent and Wijnaldum got 1 against Barcelona, 4-0.
Trent got 1 at Leicester, didn't he, Boxing Day?
Trent got 1 at Leicester, yeah. And I think I gave Sturridge 1 for his equaliser at Chelsea about 3.5, nearly 4 years ago, because he'd literally touched the ball once and scored from about 50 yards. So I thought that was fair enough. Yeah, United aren't very good, are they? In fact, they're probably, insert word that would involve us having to not broadcast this to the Middle East countries, if we're being honest. They, we've said this. It seems to be like every year we go, well, they can't possibly be this bad, and then you see them playing, it's like, oh, they are. And it's been like that for a while now. I know, Guy, that you were pretty insistent that United were absolutely hopeless, and you said that you fully expect Arsenal to finish above them, and Arsenal went and beat Chelsea 4-2. So so it looks like that could easily happen, but you've got to finish above Tottenham as well, guys. So that might be a bit more tricky. Anyway, going back to Liverpool, yeah, I think Liverpool played very well first half. Probably the first half. I've seen some people say that the first half was reminiscent to when they played Forest and won 5-0. Slight difference there is that Notts Forest were actually really good rather than absolutely hopeless like United are. That said, that shouldn't take away from the standard of the performance from so many Liverpool players. I think Gorsty's right. I think 2-0 flattered United at half-time. I think 4-0 was fair enough in the end. United did have about 15 minutes, didn't they, at the start of the second half when they decided to have an attack when Sancho came on. But Alisson made, that double save. Then a couple of minutes later, Liverpool made it 3, and that was the end of the game. And it is strange just to think just how far United have fallen, because as Gorsty said, when Liverpool were absolutely rubbish during the 90s, they always gave United a game, didn't always win. So there was one game where they got beat 4-0 at Old Trafford, but Sami Hyypiä got sent off after about 3 minutes. So United didn't even have the excuse of a player being sent off, although a player did walk off after about 6 minutes, didn't he? Pogba, as far as we're aware, he's never going to play for them ever again. So that's the difference, isn't it, between the two clubs? They've got players who are just going off and never turning up ever again, whereas the Liverpool players are all desperate to be involved, and I think that's going to be the case between now and the next 6, hopefully 6 weeks when they finish the season, hopefully the Champions League final. So, overall, what could have been a bit of a banana skin, the minute the first goal goes in, that was kind of it. There was no way United were coming back, even if they did have that little spell. And Liverpool just, while you would expect next season United to be better. Obviously, they've announced the new manager today, whose name I forgot. Ten Hag, is it? The lad, the guy from Ajax. Yeah, and he's going to be bringing 1 or 2 people over. You'd think they'd sign some new players as well. They can't possibly be as bad. What was it? 5-0 at Old Trafford, 4-0 at Anfield. Imagine if that had been the other way around. Can you imagine what state Liverpool fans would be at now? They'd be like, sack everybody. The whole of the internet would just go into meltdown, just like, bring in all the under 12s to play or some nonsense like that, which I suspect is what some United fans are doing. So, but as I said, that's not Liverpool's concern. They played United, they'll beat them, move on to the next one, and then worry about them next season when they're up against them again.
Yeah, definitely. Joe, I mean, a 9-0 aggregate win over the 2 league fixtures over Manchester United, a Carabao Cup already in the bag, an FA Cup final, Champions League semi-final, a title race that there's just 1 point in it. I mean, football doesn't get better than this season, does it, for Liverpool?
It does if they win all those things that you just mentioned. Then it gets a hell of a lot better. So, I mean, it's been a brilliant season. These last couple of months have just been thoroughly enjoyable. Liverpool fans should just drink it in, because it doesn't come better than this, does it? Every game seems to be big. Every game Liverpool seems to show up in. I thought the first half the other night, like Donny was saying, they were just absolutely awesome. Thiago, I think, certainly in the first half, gave one of the best midfield performances I can remember. I thought his forward passing was just out of this world. And you can say the same about Saturday just gone as well, with the FA Cup semi-final. I thought first half they just blew City away. They played with aggression, they played with poise, skill, everything you name it. They were brilliant. So, I mean, it really doesn't get much better. And I think, we spoke, was it a month or so ago, about people taking the mick out Liverpool fans, and even some of us for talking about the quadruple. But again, I'll say what I said then. I think that positivity from fans serves Liverpool well, and it's a good place to be. It's a good place for those players to play. Anfield is a good place for the club, and not such a good place for their opponents. And that is because I think the fans believe that they can go and win all these competitions. So, I think positivity has served the club well. People were right to shout about the quadruple, because whether they do it or not, it's certainly on, and it's certainly there to be won for Liverpool. So it's great. One thing I will disagree with Gorst here, I thought Neville, and I like Neville, don't get me wrong, but I think he's such a bloody baby. I thought he was over the top as well. Let's not forget, this guy was tipping United to win the title last August. He was as soon as they signed Ronaldo, they were talking. And one thing that does frustrate me is last summer they were talking about as if Liverpool were finished under Klopp, and because they had a bad season, that United had passed them by, and Ronaldo was this cherry on top for them. And I think anyone with any sense, I'm certain that all three of you, and I'm certain that most people I speak to, knew full well that Liverpool would be back in a big way, because they missed such important players last year. You just couldn't count it, and to recover the way they did and finish third, I thought was really impressive. And I never ever thought that United would finish above them this year. And I think last season was a massive papering over the cracks exercise for United against teams that were slightly weaker or in a bit of a mess. They weren't playing in front of crowds. And the likes of Neville, I thought he was totally, I mean, he admitted it, didn't he, afterwards, but unprofessional in commentary. He basically spent the entire 90 minutes crying it in about how bad United were, and saying this team's a waste of space, and these players, let's not forget that a year ago he was lauding the likes of Rashford, people like that. So I think it's slightly silly. At the end of the day, the players are struggling, yeah. But they're a team and a club that's lost because they've been mismanaged for years, and they've got no identity. And Ralph Rangnick's just made things worse, hasn't he? Why would you play Phil Jones for the second time?
I think he's been great actually for them, because he's basically just the longer it goes on, or the nearer he gets to his finishing, he's basically just saying, "Yeah, we're all absolutely rubbish. We're all absolutely rubbish. We need to do this, that, and the other," because he knows he's not going to be in charge anyway. So the players don't like him, but. Without wishing, I reckon I say this every single time I'm on, without wishing to turn this into a Manchester United podcast. The thing with them is that you see the stories of the players aren't happy with the manager being appointed. It's like, who cares what you think? That's the difference, and it underlines why at Liverpool with Jurgen Klopp, I'm pretty sure not all the players absolutely love him, because that's impossible. Like Joe, I reckon that not everybody who works under you absolutely loves you to the same degree.
Not sure about that.
Say perhaps Sam Carroll does. But yeah, I think with Liverpool though, they're all on the same page and they're all working together towards the same goal. And it's something that Trent said. He actually said this about, what game was it before? I think it was before the Inter Milan game. He said, "I like this part of the season now because this is where things start getting interesting." And you can see with Liverpool, they've got such experience of getting through to, whether it's playing for a Champions League place, playing a Champions League final, going for the league. Under Klopp, every single season's had something riding on at the end, and then this is where their experience tells, which, to be fair, City have got that as well, and Chelsea, which is what a surprise that it's those three teams who are the ones who are going to be there at the end, whereas United are still falling away, and it's going to take them a while to get back up to the level that they want to be at.
What we can all take from that, by the way, is Ian Doyle has just compared me to Jurgen Klopp. So
yeah,
that's what I take.
You've got the same hairline,
as he says. Well, to be fair, he's had a transplant, so I'm doing well.
I'm not getting involved in that conversation.
Yeah. That's why I come on the pod with you too.
Yeah, exactly. Bradley Murphy's got in touch. We are live on Facebook and YouTube today as we are recording. He says, "I'd like to know Trent's defending against United was top shelf, especially with many saying he can't defend." If you want to get your comments in, get away in the chat box.
Does he mean top drawer rather than top shelf? Because in my mind, top shelf means something completely different.
Yeah, I think let's not bash the listeners and viewers.
I'm involving them in the conversation. Right.
Yeah, I think Bradley.
To be fair, he's Bradley's spot on. No,
again,
I was chatting to my dad after the game the other night. It annoys me that there's any questions over Trent's defending. But why does anyone think that? I think this myth that he can't defend is crazy. He was brilliant the other night, and spot on, Bradley.
Yeah, definitely. Gorst, do you want to talk about Liverpool? Let's get it away from Manchester United. Full focus on Liverpool and the Reds and how well they did play. I mean, I've seen a number of people on social media talking about that Nottingham Forest game from yesteryear. Leicester City, of course, Boxing Day of the title-winning season. Was that performance that should Liverpool go on and win this Premier League title? You look at that as the jewel in the crown of not only 5-0 at Old Trafford, but the manner, the dismantling of them at Anfield as well. Certainly just in the mould that this Liverpool team we've just come to, I suppose, be enamoured with how they go about things under Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah, possibly, but I think what might even be a more a bigger indicator of that was the FA Cup semi-final. I just think the manner in which they dispatched City gave them the energy to push on. What struck me the other night was how fresh Liverpool looked. This is game number 52 or 3 of the season, I think, and they're still looking ahead to a potential 9 or 10 more, and they're looking as though they're just flying out the traps in August. There's no one who's looking a little bit leggy, who looks like he needs a rest. I think Klopp has just managed the options superbly. Actually, in recent weeks, he made 7 changes against Benfica. He made 7 more against City, and he's just kind of juggling the options. And let's face it, he has got quite a selection of players to choose from, hasn't he, with no real injuries, which is a bit of a rarity for Liverpool. But if you're talking Premier League fixtures, then yeah, I think you can look at this game against Manchester United in late April and the winning 4-0 as the potential one that gives them the impetus to go and finish the season as strongly as they can. We'll only know that when the final whistle blows, of course. But from here on in, you're looking at it and you're thinking, I think Frank Lampard said it in his press conference before, Liverpool are the form side in the Premier League and there's no getting away from it. And I think everyone would agree with that, wouldn't he? Even Manchester City, who've had a few stumbles over the last 2 or 3 months. Liverpool, since that Chelsea game, not even sure. They haven't dropped the point, have they, since that Chelsea draw?
City, they drew to
City, yeah, at the Etihad, the 2-2 draw. But I mean, as Klopp said, you can kind of make the allowance for that one because it's, kept them in contention, hasn't it? So yeah, I mean, maybe we will look back at Tuesday night as the kind of catalyst for the running. But yeah, I just think they're absolutely flying at the moment and not looking at all like they've played nearly 55 games. And just going back to Joe's point there about Liverpool last season, I think sometimes with us we cover it, every coffin spit, don't we, in such great minute detail. But I think if you don't follow Liverpool as closely as we do and as the supporters do, I think there's a general perception last season that Liverpool only had Van Dijk missing, and it was, your season crumbled because you didn't have your best centre-back. But Matip was out. Matip played the most out of the 3 centre-backs, and he didn't make 10 Premier League appearances. They were finishing the season with Reece Williams, who'd been on loan at Kidderminster. Jordan Henderson was out from February. His season was over, 10 minutes into the derby when he started at centre-back. Jota was out for 3 months. Thiago was out for 3 months. At one point, I think they had 11 or 12 injured. I seem to remember that in a Champions League game against Ajax. So what Liverpool managed to achieve last season was actually, a really impressive feat, given the obstacles that were thrown in the path. And I do think, looking at it, you were thinking once Liverpool get everyone back, get Canate in at centre-back, they've now kind of sorted every issue that they had last season. Everyone's fit again, and I don't think there was any real concern that United were going to finish above Liverpool, was there? I mean, we know Neville was saying 1 or 2 things about Liverpool don't look the same and this, that, and the other. But easy to look back with hindsight, but that was nonsense, wasn't it? Looking back at it now.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And Jurgen Klopp referenced it in his press conference today, Doyle, in terms of that run-in from last season. And I suppose the muscle memory his side have now built up, and the way in last year for trying to reach that Champions League, which at the time probably, and Jurgen Klopp admitted as much, that he was even looking at Europa Conference League scheduling as to if Liverpool had fallen into that. The job they had to do at the end of last season to carry themselves to finish in the top 3 as they did in the end is probably a bigger ask than what they have to get past the point difference to Man City this season. Yet in a player like Thiago, they have a guy who this stage of the season, I suppose it's kind of like boxers, isn't it? Championship rounds come to the fore when needed most, and it's exactly where Thiago's finding himself right now.
Yeah, well, we said last season, didn't we? Well, I said it anyway, that I thought that if Liverpool finished in the top 4, don't forget they finished 3rd, actually.
Yeah.
They finished 3rd, yeah. So they finished in the top 4, I thought it would be a better achievement than even reaching the Champions League final in 2018. So, and weirdly enough, Klopp kind of said that himself after it had been achieved. So that does underline that fact. And also, I think what people were forgetting over the summer is the amount of times a team takes the momentum from the end of one season into the next. And Liverpool had such a bad time. Well, I would say bad time. It was relatively bad. They weren't exactly fighting against relegation, were they, and all this? They were always in and around near to the top 4. That's why they had the chance in the end. So they took that in, and as the lads have said, all the players were back. So surely by definition they're going to be. They only lost Wijnaldum, didn't they? Really, in terms of a big name over the summer, and they basically they let him go, didn't they? And without wishing to go back on things we've said a million times there in the season, you can see what's happened with Wijnaldum. It's not quite worked out with him, and with Thiago, it's worked out very well actually. And he's not played as many games as you'd have wanted him to in the Premier League. But then the same could be said for most of the midfielders, with the exception, funnily enough, of Fabinho and Jordan Henderson. Jordan Henderson's played more Premier League games than any of the other midfielders. I think there's only Alisson and Salah who's played more times. So in the Premier League, that is. So in that sense, that's not changed. But of course, he said he was missing for 3 or 4 months last season towards the end. So I do think that the likes of Gary Neville, to me, I haven't actually heard all the commentary, obviously, because I was at the game, but I've heard bits and bobs and people saying he was a little bit childish. But he's a fan, isn't he? He doesn't want to see United lose to Liverpool and give up in that way. So I don't blame him for that. And the fact that he's come out afterwards and said, look, on retrospect, possibly a little bit, got a bit carried away there. That's just what happens. And I think it could be the other way around for Liverpool. I'm pretty sure, as Joe said before, Liverpool fans earlier in the season were getting not criticised, but kind of teased for like, oh, you're getting carried away again. But that's been justified because what's changed over the past 4 or 5 years is that in the past were, say, what was it 16, 17, where they were top after about 7 games, they beat Watford 6-1 or something like that, and they had the banner or whatever it was, and then obviously within about 6 weeks they were down into third and they had absolutely no chance of winning it. But that came from just, a bit of hope. This is different. This is actually realistic ambition because they've seen this team win the Champions League, win the Club World Cup, win the Premier League. They've just seen this one already win the League Cup this season. So they know exactly what this team can do, what's needed. And they're just enjoying it. And what was interesting for me is that after the game on Tuesday, a couple of Liverpool players were asked. In fact, it was Trent got asked it after the cup semi-final at Wembley. How do you feel? Are you enjoying this? And they both all went, well, how can you not enjoy this? Liverpool have never been in this position before. We could still win all 4 trophies. The players speaking, by the way, we can still win all 4 trophies. So may as well make the most of it because we might not ever be in this position ever again. They are used to compete for trophies, but not all at the same time. And it's like Klopp said, and funny enough, we've said this with Gorst speaking, privately, that we take it one game at a time now. It's like, oh, who's next? Right, you go Everton. You don't think like, oh, and then the game after that's a Champions League semi-final. It's like, well, we'll deal with that when we come up to it. We got this Everton game first, and then we got that, then we got Newcastle. So it's just one game after the next. Whereas 5 or 6 years ago, I think Klopp said it today, didn't he? He said normally with the derby, normally with the derby you've got the whole week, but because Liverpool are playing so many games and big games at that, it's like, oh, it's Friday and we can start thinking about the derby now, and it's in 2 days. And to a certain extent, it's the same for Everton because they've got a completely different set of ambitions that they're kind of concerned about. So I'm sure we'll get onto the derby itself in a minute, but it's probably the biggest derby in terms of what it means for both clubs. So much riding on it since about, 2005? The game where about 17 players got sent off or went off at the end. Liverpool won 2-1, wasn't it? Yeah, so
yeah, but at that time they were both vying for the same goal, weren't they? Whereas this time it's
you're right.
Actually attached within that,
you're right, but it's still who's you could argue who's got the greater need for these points. You could argue Everton. You could easily argue Everton because even if Liverpool finish second, it's like, oh, there's still the FA Cup and whatever have you. But if Everton go down, completely transform a club and not in a good way. So that's probably where the fun thing comes into it. I think Liverpool players know that if it doesn't happen, they've already achieved a certain amount. And while it will obviously be very bad that if they don't win stuff, it's not quite as I was trying to say in 2016, 17, where, oh, we've messed it up again. This is different.
But that's why, sorry, Guy, that's why I don't think there's actually that much pressure on Liverpool. Because if they don't win the quadruple, then they just join every other team ever who's never won the quadruple. There shouldn't be any real pressure on it. It's to be enjoyed, and if they don't win it all, they might win the Champions League. They could possibly still win the Premier League and in the final of the FA Cup. So it's not a case of enduring these games. It's just a case of
enjoying them, taking them on.
Yeah, enjoy it and just see where they end up.
Do we know, Joe? Do we know anybody who just can't get his round about? You have to explain just how difficult it is to be a fan in a title. You don't understand what it's like to be a fan.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we know anybody like that?
No, see, this is the thing I was going to come on to. Is I'm not a Liverpool fan, as you well know, Doyle. You love to mention it, but I find it absolutely fascinating this season that Liverpool genuinely can do something I only thought was confined to the realms of computer games, and can actually make it reality and take this on and do it, and not only achieve this, but do it in a manner, Joe, that is just absolutely incredible. I mean, again, I find this job all-encompassing and absolutely love it. I mean, I was walking the dog the other day thinking about it and thinking to myself, for me, the Barcelona team of 2011 is the pin-up greatest team I've ever seen. But now I'm having second doubts thinking, no, I think this Liverpool team, it's because they've got absolutely everything. And even the way in which they're playing, I couldn't watch the game on Tuesday night either. I was up to other things, but I found the full match replay on Sky for a team I don't even support to watch the full thing back. And Mane's pass for Salah's first goal is absolutely incredible. And I mean, just this team and what they're doing, I am speechless, and not often I am, Joe. But as I say, I can't think of many sides who rank above what Jurgen Klopp has transformed and created at Liverpool.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, and it wasn't just Mane's pass, was it? I mean, Doyle, you did your whole analysis on that 25 pass move, and it was just incredible football, and Liverpool just seemed to be operating at that peak level. But this is, these things don't happen overnight, do they? And what, again, it kind of goes back to them. But if you look at everything that's wrong with United, everything that's right with Liverpool is 5 years of careful planning, meticulous recruitment, of backing of the manager, of having fans believe in what he's doing and giving and being patient at times, even when you're frustrated. And if you look at Liverpool in the transfer market, the best thing they ever show is restraint, isn't it? And it annoys people and it upsets people. But every year, we have the same thing every summer where people kick off because they don't sign 3 or 4 players and they just sign one. And now you're seeing the results of all that. I think. I mean, I agree with you. I think that Barcelona side of 2011. I mean, I don't know what did they win in Spain? Did they win everything there was to win in Spain at the time?
2009 they won a treble.
Yeah,
and 2011. I don't know if that was the year Real picked them to the league or not. But I suppose both sides.
One where they both got
of United, don't they?
Yeah, well, yeah. But it is incredibly fun to watch. Like, I don't think we can have that discussion until post-season and whether they've done this quadruple or not. But look, just in a basic way, what I wanted Liverpool to do this season was win a few more trophies. I mean, Carragher said it early in the year. I think both of you guys have said it. I think we all agree that I just don't want the Klopp era to end with one league and one Champions League. And I know the Club World Cup, but of the 4 sort of main trophies that you compete for every year, and that sounds slightly entitled, but Klopp has been such a good manager and Liverpool have had such a good time that you just want a few more pots to show for it. You want a few more, you want to take that trophy wall at Anfield. You want to take those tallies up a little bit. And adding the League Cup, I thought was great. I thought it's a great step forward. If they can add the FA Cup, brilliant. And it's just little things though, isn't it? But all right, if they do all 4 at once, that's brilliant. But like Gorst said, there shouldn't be any pressure because if they just win the FA Cup from here on out, it's still a good season. We can all enjoy it. And we'll have our days out that we can all love and enjoy. If they win the FA Cup and the league from here, then that's a great domestic treble. I don't think Liverpool have ever done that in their history. If they win the Champions League on top of it, or they win any combination, if they just win the Champions League, I mean, God, most teams would give their right arm to win the Champions League, wouldn't they? One that comes to mind, Guy. But I think anything they win from here on out, we should just enjoy. And there's no, like Gorst said, it's a really good point. There's no pressure on Liverpool to win a quadruple. It's incredible that they're in this position, but whatever they win from here on out, it constitutes brilliant success this season.
Yeah,
I think. I know. Sorry,
I'm just going to mention the comment we got there. Is what we're seeing Liverpool doing is unreal, but let's enjoy it. We're on course of making history game by game and see where it takes us. Joe, I would quickly, before the guys jump in, note Liverpool didn't get a 4-2 win at Stamford Bridge, did they? Anyway, lads, over to you guys.
There was actually people in the ground when Liverpool played. Yeah, come on, let's get this right. Come on, it was the baying atmosphere of Stamford Bridge, not the empty seats with the Arsenal fans wondering where everybody was. I just want to add, by the way, to what Joe said. I didn't say this. Somebody else said it recently, and I can't remember who it was, so apologies. But one of the things that Liverpool have allowed Jurgen Klopp to do is get it wrong, to fail. And I think this is something that some of the other clubs we mentioned, such as, to a lesser degree, Arsenal, certainly more so Manchester United, is, in his first season, lost the League Cup final, lost the Europa League final, didn't get into the Champions League. A lot of clubs would have gone, that can't be doing with that. First time they got into a Champions League final, lost it. First time they got to a Premier League, challenge for the Premier League, didn't win that either. So there was quite a lot that they got wrong until they started getting it right. And I think that's what some teams have to go through. And Liverpool have done that, which takes me back to my point that I was saying before about they know they can win it, and that's why there's not quite that pressure. Because let's say Liverpool hadn't won the league 2 years ago, now it'd be like, oh, it's just they haven't won it for 32 years. It's like no one mentions that anymore. Nobody mentions it. Nobody at all. No, the only thing is that I think the only pressure they've got is by wanting to win it, as Joe said, partly because this team deserves to win a few more trophies. But secondly, if they win the league, they can celebrate it in front of actual human beings who are there rather than just the press.
I think going back to Joe's point there about adding a few more trophies to this kind of legacy that Liverpool have already got under Jurgen Klopp. If Klopp was to walk away tomorrow before the derby, they'd probably find space for a statue somewhere of him. So the fact that his legacy and his kind of the entire Klopp era, it could yet still be to be defined in these next 6 weeks just tells you all about just how special a season it could be. You know, Liverpool are on the cusp of something that has never happened before. Certainly, Liverpool never been this close to getting there all 4 trophies. The furthest I think an English team has gone in doing that was Chelsea in 2007, and that was May the 1st. So Liverpool are going to go past that because the semi-final with Villarreal is on the 3rd of May. And, you know, without dismissing Villarreal, I think neutrals and supporters are expecting Liverpool to get into the Champions League final as well, aren't they? So these next few weeks, as we say, no pressure, and it, you know, could be an era-defining period. So just enjoy it, I guess, I suppose, is the message to supporters.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad we've done half an hour on a football podcast speaking purely about the football. But Gorsty, I feel obliged, given the interview that has come out today with Mohamed Salah, to ask you about the contract situation. We thought we got away with it, but we maybe haven't quite. What is the latest with the Egyptian King?
Yeah, well, he's given an interview to 442, hasn't he? I think the actual magazine is on the shelves, probably the top shelf, Doyle, on Thursday. And
I don't think it's on the top shelf.
He just kind of says what we already know. You know, kind of hints that he'd like to stay and nothing's been sorted. And there's a line where he says it's not all about the money or something to that effect. But to be honest, I think Liverpool now are in a situation where everyone's just focused on what they can achieve on the pitch. No real thought has been given to anything else beyond that. And it's kind of tallies with something Jurgen Klopp said the other week. I think possibly I asked him a question about Joe Gomez, and he basically said that everyone's all hands on deck. No one's thinking about the summer. And perhaps if people have got 1 or 2 issues with regards to not playing or whether they want to maybe move on, you know, that might happen in the summer. But at the moment, everyone's just thinking about what could possibly be achieved. And, you know, that kind of ties in with what Salah seems to have told 442. So at the moment, you know, wouldn't be anticipating any kind of contract news one way or another. Maybe something in the summer months. We just get a nice little piece of news that it has been signed and sealed, but certainly not between now and the end of the season.
Okay, let's move on though quickly, and we are fast running out of time. But Doyle, I want to ask you about the derby, given that is the game Sunday and so often such a huge game, and having spent time, of course, covering the blue side of Merseyside as well as the red half. I remember, what was it, after their defeat at Burnley, you put a great long thread on Twitter, just how important actually them being involved in a relegation battle, how seriously it should be being taken. You mentioned it before. I mean, there is a prospect that this could be the last league derby for quite some time if they were to get relegated.
Yes, but they aren't. So that's that. No, I don't think Everton will go down. And you're right, though. They are. It's getting a bit close, isn't it? Getting a little bit close there. You know, they could be in the bottom 3 if Burnley get a positive, even just a draw against Wolves. That's, I think I'm right in saying, just a few hours before. There's a game before, isn't it? That's 2:00, and the derby's at 4:30. At least I hope it is. That's what I'm planning for anyway. It is 4:30, isn't it? Yeah.
Looking around. Hey guys.
But the thing about that is, with Everton, they've still got a fair few games to go. I'd be a lot more concerned if there was about 2 or 3 games to go. And yeah, the pressure is more on Everton than Liverpool in this game. But conversely, or perversely, nobody's expecting, even Evertonians aren't expecting to get anything from this game. Whereas everyone just assumes Liverpool are going to win. And I know there's one group of players who don't assume Liverpool are going to win, and fortunately enough, they're the Liverpool players, because they'll know quite well what to expect from this game. And you know, we may as well address it. Klopp said earlier today, looking at the game, he did make 1 or 2 mentions to, you know, play. He likes it aggressive and all that kind of stuff, but you know, not over the top like it used to be in the old days. And I'd assume one of the old days was a day in October 2020 when, you know, a couple of his players got knocked out of the team for about 3 months, the other one for the rest of the season. So I think he's just a little bit wary of that, because it has happened before with Origi, wasn't it? With Ramiro Funes Mori.
Yeah.
He got caught. So, I mean, Klopp, he was desperately trying not to make a big deal of it. But I think the fact that he even mentioned it in the first place was just a little bit of a reminder that he knows what's happened in his games in the past. Although, to be fair, it didn't happen in the last 2 games. Everton won fair and square at Anfield back in last February when there was nobody there, and then Liverpool won 4-1 at Goodison, and there wasn't really much to do about anything, was there really? So I do think, the pressure is on Everton. Will they go down? There's a possibility, but I'd be very surprised if they did, because, to be honest, the other three teams below them are even worse, and probably Leeds as well.
Yeah, I mean, the saying is he who laughs longest, Joe. Obviously, when Liverpool didn't win the title 3 years back, it was, oh, look, the draw at Goodison was the one that cost Liverpool. I mean, at the end of the day, Liverpool could win this, consign Everton on their way to going down and win the league. I mean, that for the red half, that would be brilliant. For the blue half, not so much. But Jurgen Klopp was asked about it, wasn't he, in the press conference, of if he would miss it if Everton were to get relegated. And truly, really, Reds don't want to see the Blues go down, do they?
No, I mean, look, everyone wants the Merseyside Derby, don't they? It's one of the highlights of the season. You know, I don't know about yourself, but whenever the fixture list comes out, you're always up for the United games, you're always up for the Everton games, and then nowadays you look for the City games too. So those are the ones that sort of always stick in the mind. No, is the answer. I don't want Everton to go down. You know, I think even fans, you know, they might be enjoying it in a certain sense, but I don't think you want to see them go down. It's not good for the city. It just, you know, it's just not a really good situation. So, no, but look, I mean, what Doyle said is right. You know, I think you know, Liverpool players will be treating this in the right way. I think if Liverpool just go out there and play, and almost just forget it's a derby, just treat Everton like any sort of struggling team, they'll go and win this quite easily. Don't get sucked into the derby. And to be fair, they don't often do that, do the Liverpool players? And, you know, I think they didn't do that against United. They didn't get sucked into it being a big game. They just treated United like any mid-table team and swatted them aside. So, yeah, and I also don't think Everton will go down. You know, just I think they will struggle. I think it will be ugly. But if you look at the table and you look at the games remaining, I just think Goodison Park gives them a slight advantage over Burnley, who I think, although on paper have the easier games, I just don't see picking up as many points there. So yeah, I think it'll be quite hairy for Everton, but I think they'll just survive by the skin of their teeth.
Final subplot to mention, Gorsty is the man who's going to be on the touchline leading Everton. Last time, I think I'm right in saying, Frank Lampard took a side to Anfield. He was involved in some unpleasantries with Jurgen Klopp and told to get back in his seat, as it were. Be interesting to keep an eye on those two.
Yeah, it will, won't it? You know, Liverpool fans got no love lost for Frank Lampard, the former Chelsea legend, at a time when there was real animosity between those two clubs. There was always that interminable Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard debate, wasn't there? And then he went and managed Everton. So, yeah, Liverpool fans will probably give him a special mention on Sunday. But I agree with I think Joe said it there about just treating Everton like a team who are coming to Anfield in 17th. You know, Saturday is 5 years to the day since Liverpool were last beaten at home in the Premier League in front of a full crowd. That was that Crystal Palace game, if you remember, back all that way. Everton had the second worst away record in England before they played Tottenham, kept off the bottom only by Peterborough. So that's 92 teams, and Everton are 91st in that list. And since then, they've lost 5-0 at Tottenham. They've been beaten by West Ham, and they've been beaten by Burnley as well. So they might very well be bottom of that list now. I haven't kept up with Peterborough's away results, if I'm honest. So all things are pointing towards a comfortable...
Slipshod.
I know.
They won at Barnsley on Good Friday, Peter.
Well, there you go, guys. See, you're the man with the knowledge, especially the Football League. So, you know, all that combined is just another kind of thing, as I was saying at the top of the pod, about this feeling that it's just very obviously pointing towards a Liverpool win, which might make a few a little bit unsettled. But if Liverpool turn up, then they are going to win this Merseyside Derby on Sunday, I'm sure.
I'll mute there for a moment.
Hello, Guy. Yeah, you're still with us, yeah.
got it sorted in time. Right, let's move on to our team predictor then, ahead of the 240th Merseyside Derby. Alisson Becker to be between the sticks for the Reds. Doyley, who's going to be the back four?
I think it'll be the same back four that played against Man United.
Okay. Joe, are you going along with that, or are you going to start changing things up?
Sneaky feeling for Konate, but then I think at the moment that they're both playing so well, aren't they, Konate and Matip, that whichever one you put in, you're quite happy with. So, you know, I like them both. I've just got a sneaky feeling he might put Konate in there.
And Gorsty, heads or tails, which one are you going for?
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're going like for like, there's not much between the two players, comparatively, but Liverpool concede a lot less when Matip plays alongside Van Dijk. They just seem to have that bit more of an understanding of the high line and how it works. So I'm going to go with Matip, even though I'm a little bit wary of him playing 3 games in a week because I think he'll play against Villarreal as well. But yeah, Matip just because of that run with Van Dijk.
Okay, Joe, what about the midfield?
Well, Thiago will play, Fabinho will play. Do you know what? I would go with Keita. I've got a feeling he might do something mad, like just put Milner in, just because he might. But yeah, I would go with Keita.
Okay, Doyle, what about your midfield?
I don't think Thiago will play. I think he'll rest him. I think it'll be Fabinho, Henderson, and Keita. Although, like Joe, I do have the suspicion he might do something a little bit different, which could be Curtis Jones playing.
Okay, yeah. Gorsty, what about yourself?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, this. I'd like to see I'd like to see Keita, Fabinho, and Thiago get a go, but I think he likes Henderson in these types of games. Henderson was sensational against Everton in December. But then you can make a case for him doing something a bit left field, like
is there any chance he'd rest both Fabinho and Thiago for the Champions League game? Or
I think we might see Thiago drop out. I think it could be Henderson and Keita, and I don't think he'll rock the boat with Fabinho.
Okay, no problem. Okay, who's up to? Oh, Dolly, what are you gesturing away at?
Nothing.
Oh, right, you just start going like this.
I can do the Italian thing.
No, it's fine.
I'll do some more gestures if you want. I'll be here all day.
No, same Frank Lampard. Gorsty, what about the?
Imagine that. I get kicked out the press box.
Gorsty, what about the forward line?
Well, Firmino's probably not going to play, as he said today. That foot injury's ongoing. I think he might start Jota, drop out Diaz.
Okay, Doyley, what about yourself?
I agree with that, and I also think that Diaz will come on and just run Everton a bit silly in the second half.
The man who, of course, was an Everton transfer target in the summer. But Joe, what about yourself?
Yeah, I agree. I think he will play Jota instead of Diaz, but I would just play Diaz again because I love watching him. I just think he's been one of the. I mean, to be honest, you can say this almost about every signing they've made in the last few years, but just one of the best signings they've made in terms of an impact. Love watching him play. I think he's just great. All-round player. I love his work rate, the way he gets back and helps out in defence. And that front three just seems to really click, doesn't it? Him, Salah, and Mane. So, I'd kind of like to see them just go again. But I think with the games coming up, you'll want to manage it and rotate. So I think he'll bring Jota in.
Okay, and what about scoreline then, Joe? Start with you.
I don't like doing this, but I do think if Liverpool just approach it the way they should, I think they will win comfortably. So I would say 4-1, perhaps.
4-1. Doyley?
3-1.
Gorsty?
Yeah, I've seen a fair bit of Everton this season, to be honest, and they're awful, particularly away from home. So I can't look past another convincing Liverpool win, I think. So I'll go 4-0.
Okay, that's 4-0. Let's see if that does play out. There's plenty in the build-up to come on the Blood Red channel on YouTube. We've been down to Anfield to speak with the fans about the hopes of the quadruple. A special podcast as well with Five-Guard John Murray, who will be behind the mic. Our guys, Doyley and Gorst, will be in the press box, bringing you all of the coverage across on the Liverpool Echo blog and plenty more besides it. On Monday, of course, we will be back to look back on the 240th Merseyside Derby. But from myself, Guy Clarke, Paul Gorst, Ian Doyle and Joe Rimmer, thanks for your time and your company. It's bye for now.